What's going on, everyone? I'm Sage, and in this video I want to go over the alpha class talents for Feral Druid specifically. Obviously it's for all specs, but mainly pertaining towards Feral Druid. So they've redesigned it slightly for us. It's pretty much been in the column basis as a Feral, Guardian, Restoration, and Balance for the most part, but they did give us not only a couple points back because they put stuff that were 2 points back down to 1 points, but they've moved a few of the things around that allowed us to kind of have a little more optimization, or where we can for Feral specifically, where we can get everything that we need that's mandatory for the spec, and then have a lot of kind of like choices that where we can just choose what kind of like utility or extra defensive that we want. So one of the great things, so just jumping straight into it, there are two things that we have to take into consideration when we're looking at these tree build outs, especially since we're just going over the class one. But one of them is Astral Influence is no longer a thing for Feral Druids anyway. It's not going to increase our melee range. They're reducing the melee range of everybody. They said they're reevaluating across the entire game. And our mastery change. Our mastery change that incorporates periodic effects as well as our bleeds. Now it says cat form, bleeds, and periodic effects, so it could be just anything that's actually while you're in cat form, so lunar inspiration and adaptive swarm, but it could be sunfire, and owl weaving could become a thing again. So just keep those in mind as we're kind of going through it. So one of the very first things that happen is we get rake and rip as usual. We're going to take thrash, of course. Feline swiftness, they moved this up the tree a little bit, which is great for all the specs because we can access it a lot faster. And then now instead of being 2 points, it's 1 point, which is phenomenal. And then Killer Instinct, have to take it. It's mandatory. Going over the side, another thing that they changed for us is Remove Corruption is only 2 points to get into. First point in Rejuvenation, second point in remove Corruption. So there's no reason not to ever take it. Um, but you have to also be able to get down to this side of the tree. So it allows us to bridge into there. And if Owl Weaving becomes a thing, we can access through this side of the tree, but we're probably always going to take Remove Corruption anyway. It's very useful throughout dungeons, right? Nurturing Instincts. So you could do Nurturing Instincts, or you can come over here and do Wild Growth and Natural Recovery. But you're going to have extra points to kind of select Natural Recovery later on if you want to. So we're going to go into Nurturing Instincts because it gives you magical damage increase. If we do take Lunar Inspiration or Owl Weave, this is going to be great for it. But also anytime you convoke, you're going to spread a couple of those Moonfires out. So it gives you a little bit of increased damage. The healing increase is only if like you're going to regrowth yourself. So there's a little bit of value to that, but not a ton for Feral. Now we opened up the other side. Skull Bash is mandatory. Primal Fury is the reason why we like crit so much, so it's mandatory for Feral as well. I would also say Thick Hide is mandatory for pretty much all the specs. Great thing about Feral is it kind of just goes straight into it, so we don't have to try to eat up points in order to take it. And then over here, Tiger Dash. Tiger Dash and Wild Charge is up to you depending on which one you want. Tiger Dash is really good for just immediately trying to get across the playing field. And then we have Matted Fur or Urson's Vigor. Matted Fur is the one I'm going to select for this, where Bark Skin and Survival Instincts gets an absorption shield, because you're only pressing those when you need to take big damage, and this allows you to take damage higher than what your health pool is, because it's giving you that absorption. And Urson's Vigor is just, when you need to shift into bear form, take some extra damage off, which I don't do all that often unless I know I have to in order to live something. Um, and then over here on this side, we're going to get Renewal back. They changed it. Renewal was one of the talents that was down here. Now they put it up here, which is fine. Nurturing Instincts isn't a complete waste, but it is pretty close to it, right? If we're not going to use Lunar Inspiration or Sunfire with Owl Weaving or anything like that, because like we don't do a whole lot of magic damage without utilizing those. So it's kind of a sink on that, but getting Renewal, but specifically Rising Light, Falling Night is mandatory, right? Because you're getting 2% versatility, or you're getting 3% damage and healing done. So this is mandatory to get. And on the right hand side, like you don't have to go any further than this if you don't want to, but you have to come down to at least get this point. Typhoon's a great utility factor, so I'd say most of the time we're going to probably take Typhoon also. And then one of the cool things they did is they added a lot of our just strict utility not to be attached to anything else inside the tree here. And it allows you to kind of select whatever you want. I'm going to select Ursol's Vortex, Soothe, and Stampeding Roar. That allows you to come down here. I don't use Cyclone ever in PvE scenarios. There was very niche points for it, and they just don't exist anymore, really, or not of any that are extreme value anyway anymore. And then now we still have some points to play with, and this is where you can like adapt into what kind of tankiness do you want. So the first one we can do is increase our bark skin's duration by 4 seconds. I think that's good because not only we're going to use absorption shield, but now it's 4 seconds longer. And then we open up the bottom tier. Instincts of the Claw, Shred, Brutal Slash, Swipe, Rake, and Mangle, and Thrash damage is increased by 5%. So it's all of your combo point generating abilities goes up by 2, so 10%. And then over here we have our utility that's kind of been the same. We do have Oak Skin now, which is Survival Instincts and Bark Skins reduces damage taken by an additional 10%, which is actually pretty huge when you think about our DRs. But over here, making sure that you get your stun slash your AoE interrupt. So we're going to take Incapacitating Roar there. Well-Honed Instincts, we only have 1 point that we can put in it now for 40%. If you drop below 40%, then you get a heal every 120 seconds, so every 2 minutes. Still one of the best defensives in the game because of how strong it is at preemptive cheat death ultimately. So we're definitely going to take that. It's a lot easier for us to get down here to this than it is for like balance or something to have to dive all the way down here because they're going to burn a ton of points getting down here. Versus I feel like for us, it's not too many to grab on the other side of the tree. I do want to take Oak Skin, but it's one of those points that it's like, well, you could afford to sacrifice this for other things. One of the other, but before we go into like the optional talents, let's go ahead and take like Kara's Teaching, which is giving us that 3, and then the second point is 6% of the stats. Believe that's completely mandatory. Everything else down here is not mandatory. You're having improved stampeding roar. You're having forest walk, which is 8% increased healing and speed when you regrowth yourself, and then obviously Heart of the Wild, which is normal functionalities. Now, if owl weaving becomes a thing, and we want to try to utilize this to see if a convoke with starfalls and stuff is going to be worth it, you can potentially, but I would say the majority of the time Feral is not going to take Heart of the Wild unless there's like a gigantic area that you're going to want Starfalls, and it's going to be more value than just using Convoke inside Feral form. And then over here on the right hand side, Innervate and Nature's Vigil are still very, very good, and there's still things that you want to try to get, but you are going to burn some of your talents points in order to get into here because of Lore of the Grove, which is Moonfire and Sunfire's damage is increased by 5%, Rejuvenation and Wild Growth healing is increased by 3%. So you're going to burn the points in order to get there if you're not using Lunar Inspiration or you're not Owl Weaving. But you kind of have the points to burn at this point because we do have everything that we really need, right? There isn't any utility that we don't have access to. If you're talking about like Hibernate, there are very few affixes or scenarios where you'll ever use Hibernate, and you can still grab this if you wanted to. Verdant Heart is very good as well because Frenzy Regeneration and Barkskin is increasing your healing received by 20%. We're only pressing Barkskin and Survival Instincts when we need to live something, so it's great addition to that. Adds that extra tankiness, so you can take that to jump down here to get Hibernate if you need it. But I would say the majority of the time you're not going to want it. The other one though, that one of the interesting abilities they gave us is Fluid Forms, which is your Shred and Rake can be used in any form and shift you into cat form. Mangle can be used in any form and shift you into bear form, and Wrath and Starfire shift you into Moonkin form if known. So that's interesting. Being able to shapeshift automatically and do an ability without having that like GCD lock into shapeshifting into forms, and power shifting is what we called it. I like that idea of being able to shapeshift into those different forms very, very quickly without any loss or downtime. I think that'll make kind of like a shapeshifting fantasy more of a thing where it's just instant and you're doing it instead of shapeshifting, waiting for that GCD, and then starting your damage, which has always been kind of the bad thing about owl weaving is that you have to shapeshift, you have that GCD, then Sunfire, and then get back into cat form. There are certain abilities that allow you to instantly get back into cat form, like Dash did, Tiger's Fury did. Tiger's Fury is going to be more of a damage window for us now, so we're not going to use it for something as simple as just shifting back into cat form. Um, but I would like it if you could just Sunfire to get into Moonkin form, even though this is Wrath and Starfire. But it could be that there's a macro that as soon as you press Wrath or Starfire, that you instantly go into Boomkin form, and it's not like after you cast it you shapeshift into Moonkin form. There's probably a macro that we can create that'll allow you to use Sunfire if that becomes a thing, if Sunfire is affected by your mash. But outside of that, we still got several points here. We have everything that we want as far as like what we need for Feral, and we still have a good chunk of points here. So like I said, if you want Innervate and Nature's Vigil for your group, get some of that more passive healing, as well as if you're at the beginning of expansions, healers typically need some mana. Even here in Season 4, there's a lot of healers that are just eating through their mana pretty quickly, and Innervate would be nice for them. So you could definitely go into this, but if you're not taking Lunar Inspiration and you're not Owl Weaving, then Lore of the Grove is just you're sinking those talents. And you could be going into stuff that's far more tankier for you, such as going into Oak Skin, Verdant Heart, even going into Natural Recovery and getting that 4% healing received increase baseline, and then even you can go Forest Walk as well. So you're getting that 8% when you're healing yourself. But there's just so much tankiness that you can gain without burning the points over here. And then we have 1 point to kind of like utilize anywhere we really want. And I would say I'd probably go with like improved Stampeding Roar here or getting the actual Frenzy Regeneration. I would say the Stampeding Roar is something that I'd actually use more frequently than shapeshifting into Bear and then pressing Frenzy Regeneration. But if you look at this, we got all of the abilities that we want, and we have a whole bunch of stuff that increases our tankiness. Bark Skin's going to be a 30% DR with an Absorption Shield and lasts 4 seconds longer, while also giving you 20% increased healing. That's a pretty massive defensive ability. And then Survival Instincts is going to be 60% damage reduction while giving you an Absorption Shield as well. This is right here is pretty much what I would more than likely run. Well, with that talent there, this is what I'm probably going to baseline run, unless any data comes out suggesting that Owl Weaving is going to be a thing and that Sunfire is going to be connected to our mastery, since our mastery does affect periodic effects. If that's the case, then we are going to change up things quite a bit. We're going to take off all of these points around the board right here, um, and you're going to grab both all three of these, and then we need one more point because you need the additional point in there, so you can take it off of Typhoon in order to get down to both of the pieces inside Lore of the Grove, because now you're buffing up your Sunfire, which you have to get the improved Sunfire in order to AoE it, as well as you're taking increase damage for Moonfire and Sunfire right here, which could be the case if we're Owl Weaving. I would think single target Lunar Inspiration is probably going to be a thing, so going down here and getting Lore of the Grove is if we take Lunar Inspiration. But you might not, you're going to need these, and then you can go back into your defensive kit, so you can get back to Verdant Heart, Oak Skin, and then taking like Forest Walk. If right here this would be something that you would do for like Lunar Inspiration. Once again, if you don't need Innervate for somebody and you don't need Nature's Vigil. Also Owl Weaving, if we're going to end up Owl Weaving, then you could go into Fluid Forms if it does, once again, shift you directly into Boomkin form. But anyway, I do like what they did. I think Feral definitely won a little bit here. Feral and Guardian specifically, because like we can kind of get everything that we possibly want from this tree very easily. I do think still Restoration and Balance have a little bit more difficult time coming all the way over here and getting like well-honed instincts because there's stuff you have to burn. Mainly Balance because Restoration is probably going to cat weave, and cat weaving they're going to want to take a few of these talents going all the way down. Let me know what you guys think of the new class tree, and if there's anything I missed. Also, I am streaming a lot more over on ZSage TV on Twitch. So check us out over there. And then past that, I hope you guys have a great one and see you in the next video.